nuts? Are you ready to be entertained with pointless jibber-jabber and senseless small talk? If so, then you have come to the right place. It's the Todd Cook Show, starring Todd Cook, and featuring music by local and national artists. Now, broadcasting from his garage, here is Todd Cook.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You are here, I am talking, you are listening. This is the Todd Cook Show. I am Todd Cook. Episode 2-19, folks. 2-19. That means one more episode, and we will be done with Season 2 of the Todd Cook Show. And I am believing in all of my heart that Season 3 will be even better than Season 2. And we all know that Season 2 was better than Season 1 because every season, every episode of the Todd Cook Show gets better than the last. All right. It's been a couple weeks since I've had a podcast. I'm sure some of you out there are wondering what the heck has been going on. And some of you out there also probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And you are right. I have a new baby girl. That's right. I've talked about my wife was expecting, I was going to say for the last little while, but for close to 9 months now. And I mentioned it several times on this program, but she's not expecting any longer. What we were expecting has happened. We have a new baby girl, and that baby girl's name is Shelby Renee. And we could not be happier. Shelby Renee was born October 5th, 2013, about 10:28 p.m., and we could not be more happy for that. She is home. Mom and baby are both doing well. We had a few complications, and I'll explain about that in a later episode. I am going to talk quite a bit about the stay at the hospital, but I don't think I'm even going to get to the birth part yet until probably the next episode because there's so much to talk about. And that's one of the great things about having a baby. If you're a podcaster or if you're on the radio and you do a radio talk show, you have a baby, you got lots to talk about, and you have lots to talk about for a long time. I might be able to stretch this out for a month. That's how much I have to talk about. But, Shelby Renee was born October 5th, 2013, and I'm going to tell you about that, or at least some of the experience at the hospital here on this episode of the Todd Cook Show. I also have music by Dale Thompson coming up. He's my favorite artist of all time. I'm going to play a song by him after the second break, so you don't want to miss that. Stay tuned for that. And I think that's about it, so let's get started, folks. My email address, by the way, is thetoddcookshow@gmail.com. That's thetoddcookshow@gmail.com. Write me an email, ask me a question. I will write you back and answer that question. All right, let's get started here. Like I said, the baby has been born. I have lots of stories to tell, and I'm going to start with this thing. During the stay at the hospital, and like I said, there were some complications, so we had to stay there a little bit longer than probably the average expecting mother and father have to stay there. But the biggest problem I have while I was there is I was freezing cold the entire time. No matter what room they had my wife in, no matter what room I was in, no matter what part of the hospital I was in, really, I was cold. I was cold from the time I got there, and I was cold until we left. But unlike other people, there's a lot of people out there that are hot. They always complain that they're hot, and my wife is kind of like that. She's hot, and she was especially hot while at the hospital because they had her on an IV medicine, and I'm not going to get into any details, but this particular medicine was making her feel warm. And so she's normally hot, but with this medicine, she was really warm, and I am always freezing cold, so I was absolutely shivering. There were times where I was literally bouncing up and down in place trying to stay warm. And I'm not proud to say this. This is kind of embarrassing, but at one point, I was literally in the chair, a couple of recliners there. And by the way, I'm not sure why they have two recliners. Maybe, dad and, the mom, the grandma once was there at some point. But they had two recliners, and the one was worthless. I tried to sit in that, could not get comfortable at all. Sat in the other one, and neither one of them are like lazy boys that you get at a furniture store, with the nice soft cushions. These are all, with the vinyl seats in them and stuff. But I managed to get comfortable in it. and I'm not proud of this, and this is kind of embarrassing, but at one point, this is how cold I was. This is how bad my body does not want to warm up. I was at one point, I had a pair of jeans on, a T-shirt, a flannel shirt, and a hoodie with the hood up, mind you. Not just a hoodie, so, it was like a sweatshirt. No, I had a hoodie on with the hood on my head and tightened down, and 2 blankets sitting in that chair. And both the blankets, I folded each of them in half. They were really thin, so you could say I had 4 blankets on, but really it's just 2 blankets folded in half, and that was the only time I can remember at some point thinking, finally, I have warmed up. I was shivering. It was really, really bad. And a lot of people, I've heard this from people that are hot a lot. They'll say, whoa, it's so hot in here. And no, it's not hot in here. You're hot. Just because you're hot doesn't mean that it is hot in the room that you're in. And I am trying not to be like that. I tried really hard to say I was cold because every time I look at the thermostat on the wall, it always said, it was 70, 72. And that, for most people, is probably comfortable. But for me, maybe it has something to do with the fact that there was no, carpet in the hospital room there. Or I don't know what it was because it could be 72 or here at home, and I might have long sleeves on, but I'm not going to be that cold. But at the hospital, I was freezing. But these people that get hot a lot, they'll say that something wrong with the air conditioner. It's not working. Is the thermostat broke? No, the thermostat is not broke. The air conditioner is not broke. You're hot. The room is fine. I could have that thermostat that's on the wall that says it's 72. I could get another thermometer and hang it up somewhere else, and it would say it's 72. I could hang up a half a dozen of them in different parts of the room, and it might vary anywhere between 68 degrees and 74 or something, but nothing's broken. The thermostats are working fine. The air conditioner is working fine. You're just hot, and that's what I kept trying to tell myself as I was cold. The thermostat's not broke. The air conditioner is not running too much. It's not it's not that the air conditioner is not shutting off or that the furnace, the heat is not turning on. The room is not cold. I am. The thermostat is not broken. I am. There's a part of me that thinks that I'm part frog or amphibian or some cold-blooded animal that can't stay warm. I need to go into hibernation anytime the temperature is under 75 degrees. I should just wrap myself up in about 14 blankets and curl up and go to sleep until it warms up again because my body was just absolutely shivering. And I felt really bad because I know my wife was hot and she's the most important person. And at one point, I remember standing there shivering with this hoodie on and thinking the doctors or one of the nurses was going to ask me if I was all right. And at that point, I wouldn't mind having a little pity, but they never did. For whatever reason, they were more concerned with my wife, who had 4 different IVs going into her, and a baby in her belly that was trying to get out, and all the other medications she was on. They seemed more concerned with her than they did with me. But I would have really liked at some point if somebody would have said, "Hey, Daddy, are you doing okay?" And I would have said, "I'm freezing to death. You need to warm this place up." No, I wouldn't have said that because, like I said, I know it has nothing to do with the temperature in the room. The temperature in the room was fine. It was, for whatever reason, just cold to me. And at one point, and this is even more embarrassing than the fact that I had so many layers of clothes on. At one point, after the baby was born, and they laid her in that little bed, the little bassinet thing that they have, with all the tubes and stuff in case the baby needs it, and they have this big canopy that goes over the top of it that has a heating lamp on it. Newborn babies like to be warm. And at one point, while we're in the recovery room, mommy's there and the baby's there, they had that heat lamp on, and I'm sticking my head up underneath the heat lamp. And my wife will back me up on this. I had my head and my shoulders hovering over top of the baby between her and the heat lamp. And then at some point, I felt ridiculous. Here I am, stealing the heat from my newborn baby daughter. And so I had to get my head back out of there. But eventually, like I said, once they moved us in another room and I was able to get underneath some blankets and dress more warmly, everything was fine. All right, that's it for this first segment of the Todd Cook Show. When I come back, I'm going to be talking to you about how I got lost in the hospital. And not just once or twice, but multiple times. But eventually, I did learn my way around at least fairly well. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a moment. But don't go anywhere. I'll be right back in just a few short moments.
You're listening to The Todd Cook Show.
Hi, Todd Cook here. Do you like going out on Friday or Saturday nights for some supper and live music, but you're not into the bar scene? Because let's face it, when the alcohol starts to flow, those places can get a little loud and a bit rowdy. Sometimes to the point that it becomes difficult for you to enjoy your food or the music. Do you wish that there was a place that had good food, good music, but a less distracting atmosphere? A place that you can enjoy the food and the music, but still get home at a decent hour? Well, that place does exist, and it's right here in Wichita on the corner of Douglas and Hillside, or 110 South Hillside to be exact. It's called the Kiln. They have live music every Friday and Saturday night starting at 7 p.m. and ending at 9. The Kiln is a Christian-ran, non-alcoholic establishment that operates solely on donations. And they always have great food and great entertainment. And one of the best parts, you don't need a babysitter. You can bring the kids with you. So for more information, contact Mike through the Facebook page. The Kiln, K-I-L-N, and be sure to check it out yourself this Friday or Saturday night. 110 South Hillside, corner of Douglas and Hillside in Wichita. The Kiln, where they are always glad you came.
His lips are moving, but he ain't saying anything. Todd Cook.
All right, I am back. The Todd Cook Show at gmail.com is my email address. Feel free to write me there and ask me any question you might like to ask. All right, in the first segment, I told you a little bit about how cold I was at the hospital. And once again, not how cold it was in the hospital, but how cold I was, because the hospital was not broken. The thermostat, the air conditioner was not broken. I am broken, and I don't know why. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got lost at the hospital. I mentioned this in a previous incarnation of this show when I had to go visit somebody else in the hospital a few years back, and how anytime I go inside of a large building, I'm okay outdoors, but when I get inside of a large building, it's like I just lose all sense of direction. And I'll wander around in circles and go up and down the same hallway sometimes and not be able to find my way. And I've had to stop and ask directions indoors more than I have outdoors, I believe. In this case, it was no different. At some point, they had my wife in the one room, where they initially checked her and everything. And and then they moved her to another room. But anyway, I know at some point, I remember, I'd have to go out and get ice. That was usually what I had to leave the room for, was to get ice. I don't know what it is with pregnant women, and I guess it's the fact that they're not allowed to eat anything, or they would not allow my wife to eat anything or drink anything. The only thing they would allow her to have is ice. And so I had to keep making these trips to the ice machine. It was like 4 or 5 times an hour. And it wasn't like they gave her this little bitty cup. They actually at some point did give her a little, styrofoam cup. But she had a big mug. It was like a half a gallon of ice chips in there at all times. And every 2 or 3 minutes, it seems like, she would run out of ice. And I'd have to run down to the ice machine and back. And I would inevitably get lost. And it's also weird, too, because the ice machine was right down by the area where they have all the rooms where the women are in there just starting to go into labor. They haven't, dilated enough to take them to the birthing room, but they're having contractions, and they're in there and their labor is starting. And I'm down there by the ice machine, and multiple times I'd go down there and hear some lady in there, going, moaning and groaning in pain. And it just seems really awkward. Because it's not my wife, it's somebody else's wife. They've already moved my wife to another part of the hospital, but here I am wandering up and down this hallway. And like I said, a lot of times I'd go the wrong direction and end up, going up and down past the rooms like twice of these ladies in there, going into labor, and I'm out there in the ice machine, trying to fill up the ice. It just seemed kind of weird to me. But I'd go out there and I'd get ice, and I come back, and it was kind of weird how they had it set up. I had to go down the hallway and around the corner and pass a nurse's station, and then keep going down, and eventually I ended up going past another nurse's station, to get to where the room where my wife was. And after a half dozen times of doing this, at some point, as I was going past the nurse's station, I was thinking, why they have 2 nurse's stations so close together? It seemed like they'd have one here and another one, halfway down the other side of the building or something, or down the hallway, the other end of the hallway. But these two nurses stations were pretty close together. I thought, well, maybe the one nurses station is for the babies and the other one is for the mothers. I don't know, but I know I just kept passing these two nurses stations every time I'd go to the ice machine and then back to where my wife was. And at some point, I noticed that these nurses, every time I'd pass this nurses station, would look at me like really weird. Like they're I don't know, like they were staring at me. I was like, "What's wrong with you nurses?" And one of the trips I looked and I realized, well, some of these nurses in this nurses station look the same as the nurses at the other nurse station. And after a couple more trips and a couple more times I realized that, and a couple more times that they would be staring at me, I would notice that they were staring at me. And a couple more times of me realizing that some of those nurses looked identical to the other nurses, I realized it was the same nurses station. And I kept going around the circle. I would go down the hallway and pass it and then make a right and another right and end up going past the nurses station again. And they were staring at me because they were thinking, why is this guy taking this big, long, scenic route when his wife's room is right there? All he has to do is walk around this side of the nurses station. He could go right into his wife's room, but he keeps going past the nurse station, around the corner, and back into the other side. And at some point, I finally realized that and started making the shortcut. Well, I say it's a shortcut, but it wasn't even a shortcut. I started going in the correct way. And that's kind of embarrassing. After I look back on it and I realized those nurses probably thought, what is wrong with this guy? Why does he keep going in circles around in front of the nurses station? And like I said, I don't know why, but when I'm outside, I seem to be able to find my way around a lot better than when I am indoors. All right, folks, I'm going to play a song for you now. Well, and then at some point I was worried that my wife would go into labor and they would be trying to find me and wouldn't be able to find me because I'd be lost in the hospital somewhere, wandering around aimlessly, and they'd be like, "Okay, is he in the waiting room? No, he's not out there. Maybe he went home. Did he go home? No, he's not out there. Maybe he left the hospital and went to a bar or something to have a drink or something. His wife's here going into labor and he's not here." And they'd be wondering where I was when the entire time I was right outside the door, wandering around aimlessly, trying to find my way back to my wife. But luckily that did not happen. Luckily, I did find the most direct route between the ice machine and by the way, the front door. I had to leave the hospital and come back several times. I eventually found the best way to do that, and I was able to do it consistently without getting lost. But it's embarrassing. I'm going to start leaving a trail. I'm going to start, breadcrumbs, like Hansel and Gretel, or some little stickers that I can stick on the wall to make sure that I take the most direct route to wherever I need to go. The sad part is the first few times I lay down those breadcrumbs or those stickers, they're going to be all over the place, all up and down different hallways that I don't even need to go to. But eventually I would, use different color stickers each time, and eventually I'd find the correct route, and it wouldn't be quite as embarrassing. All right, let's play this song. I'm going to play a song by Dale Thompson, my favorite artist of all time. This song is called If I Plant a Tree. So here we go. If I Plant a Tree on the Todd Cook Show by Dale Thompson.
If I plant a tree today, I may never sit under its shade, but I look at the dirt on my hands, wonder why God made man. I hold my sons in my arms, could I send them away to war? See the trust that they have in their eyes, wonder if God cries. to lay down his life. And there's no greater love that I know, 'cause the Father just don't wanna let go. Yeah, I plant a tree today, will I ever sit under its shade? Will I look at the dirt on my hands and wonder why God made men?
All right, that was Dale Thompson with If I Plant a Tree. Seemed like a fitting song for a new daddy, or I should say a daddy for the third time. First time for a little girl. I mentioned that before. I'm a little worried about that, but I'm sure I'll get the hang of it eventually. Anyway, that song was brought to you by B&B Towing. 316-214-4021. This is for anybody in the Wichita, Kansas area. If you need a tow, if you need a jump start, if you need a winch out, if you have been locked out of your vehicle and need somebody to get you in, if you ran out of gas and you need somebody to deliver some fuel to you, if you have an old clunker that you want to get rid of, you need to call Cheyenne Brown at B&B Towing. Anybody in the Wichita, Kansas area can call him. B&B Towing, 316-214-4021. He is a 20-year veteran of the United States Air Force. If you need anything in the towing department, call Cheyenne Brown, B&B Towing, 316-214-4021. Let's take another little break. I'll be right back.
The Todd Cook Show will be right back.
Hi, everybody. Do you live in the Wichita area? Are you looking for a great place for lunch or dinner? Do you love live acoustic music but don't know where to go? Try the Artichoke Sandwich Bar. It is located on the corner of Broadway and Murdoch in Wichita, and it is a fantastic place to eat and listen to live music. It is located on the corner of Broadway and Murdoch in Wichita, and what goes better with a sandwich than a cold beer? So look up the Artichoke Bar on Facebook today to find out when they are opened and what musical artist is performing next. They just celebrated their 30th year in business, so you know they're doing something right. The Artichoke Sandwich Bar, 811 North Broadway, Wichita, Kansas, where everything is okie dokie artichoke.
Charlie Brown's teacher is easier to understand than he is. Todd.
Now, see, Charlie Brown's teacher isn't easier to understand. It's just as difficult to understand Charlie Brown's teacher as it is me. All right. Anyway, that's my wife's brother, Sammy, doing the voiceover work there during the bumper music. All right, I'm gonna finish up this episode of the Todd Cook Show by talking about when we brought the baby home. I will eventually tell everybody about the actual birth of the baby, but right now I'm going to tell about bringing the baby home. We have a dog, and I like the dog. My wife likes the dog, just not as much as I like the dog. She doesn't like to admit that she likes the dog, but she does like the dog. But I really like my dog. I've had several dogs, and I've said this before. He's easily the best dog I've ever had. When I was a kid, we had a couple, a Chihuahua. She was a nice little dog, but when company came over, when we had strangers over, you had to be careful because if they reached out to her, she might nip them a little bit, and that was a problem. That's actually a pretty big problem. But we had her for quite a while, and she never did bite anybody, but she definitely was a nervous dog that got scared a lot and would try to bite people at times. I had a German Shepherd, nice dog, but he did not like it inside. We tried to bring him inside, and he would just pace the floor and pant. It was the weirdest thing. It'd be cold outside. We lived in Indiana. It'd be really cold, wind chills below zero, and we want to bring him inside, but he just wouldn't have it. It was really strange. He liked being outdoors, which is fine. But and he also barked, at the people going by outside quite a bit, and he'd howl at the train. So that was a bit of an issue. We couldn't enjoy him as much as I would like to because, like I said, he liked to be outdoors all the time. And then we had a dog, a little black curly-haired dog named Boogers. He was pretty good, but he would run off. He'd get outside, and he'd take off, and you wouldn't be able to find him. And a couple other dogs, too. But this dog, and the dog we just had previous to this dog, bark at the neighbors like crazy, and sometimes people come over, he'd get nervous and try to nip at them as well. This dog has no issues whatsoever. Now, if he does get out of the backyard, if we didn't have a fence or something, or the few times that he's gotten out somehow, he never got farther than a block away, and he doesn't really run from you. It takes you a little while to get him to come back, but it's not that problem, and he doesn't try to get out. Like the other dog was always trying to get out. As soon as he see an opening, he'd get out. I'm talking way too much about this dog. Anyway, I like this dog quite a bit. He's a really nice dog, but my wife doesn't as much, and she has this thing where she thinks that he's like just full of germs or something. I guess a lot of people are like that with dogs. And when you have a newborn baby, you're always a little more conscious about that than you would be otherwise. But I had to tell her at one point, Dozer, that's the name of our dog. I said, he's not a sewer rat. He's not a rabid sewer rat, that has rabies. He's a dog. The worst thing he has is hairs and drool. I mean, he does shed quite a bit, and he drools, a little bit. Sometimes he'll do that thing where he shakes his head, and, slobber goes everywhere. But I don't know of any babies that have ever, got sick from doggy drool or doggy hair, unless they're allergic to it. And then, if that was the case, we'd have an issue. But it's not because the dog is dirty or anything. If somebody has an allergy, somebody's allergic to a dog, it's just because they're allergic to that dog, or any dog probably. But, if there was cases of a baby, getting sick from hair, other than allergies, getting sick from hair or drool, then we'd have to put our dog down because I think there are babies in the next county over who right now have pieces of our dog's hair on it and a little bit of the drool, because he does get hair and drool all over. He's pretty bad about that. But that's something he can't help, All the other behavior problems, other dogs can be trained to help. But you can't train a dog not to shed, and you can't train him not to drool. So other than that, he's a great dog. But we were a little concerned. We didn't know if, he might be a little too fascinated with a new baby and always sticking his nose. I had no indications, no worries whatsoever that he would ever, bite the baby or do anything to purposely hurt it. But he's kind of a big dog, and if he gets excited, he could, bump into the a lot of times you come home, you bring the baby in with a car seat, you set the baby down on the floor, and if he gets excited, he might run over and, knock the baby over or something. We had a few concerns about something like that, but hasn't been any problems whatsoever. He'll get like a foot away from the baby, or sometimes kind of look at it and sniff a little bit, and then go back and lay down. So he hasn't been a problem whatsoever, and I'm really glad about that, because if there would have been an issue, the dog probably would have had to go. But and now we got the 2-year-old, and we were wondering how the 2-year-old would react, and he seems genuinely fascinated with it. He likes the baby. And he always talking, baby, baby. Every time he can see the baby, there's the baby, baby, baby. Just over and over, baby, baby. We try to get him to say the baby's name, Shelby, and he won't. He has a few times, and most times he just says, baby, baby. And he's a little more enthusiastic than he needs to be sometimes. And like, for example, we'll put the baby into the bouncer. You got those little, things that you sit down and you bounce the baby a little bit. And at one point, the baby was kind of fussing, and we told Jackson, "Hey, give the baby, bounce it just a little bit," because he saw me doing it, bouncing it. And I said, "Go ahead, bounce the baby a little bit." And he starts bouncing way too hard, with the baby's head's flopping a little bit. Like, "Oh, so slow down. You can't do that." And the same thing, we've got one of those swings that you plug in, and it swings back and forth. And sometimes if it slows down a little bit, he'll go over there and give it a little too hard of a push back and forth. But he means well. He would never do anything that other 2-year-old boys wouldn't do as well. And then a 7-year-old boy, he seems just genuinely fascinated and happy with the baby as well. He wants to hold the baby, wants to feed the baby. He wants us to let him hold the baby when he's standing up and walking around, and we have not done that yet. That's not a good idea. But he'll sit down on the couch. We'll put a little pillow on his lap, and he'll hold the baby and feed the baby. And he's got all kinds of questions. And so everything so far has went absolutely smoothly. Brought the baby home, and the dog and the 2-year-old and the 7-year-old have all acted appropriately, and we're really happy about that. All right, that's the end of this episode. And once again, folks, I never even got to the part of the actual childbirth itself. My wife had to end up having a C-section, and you won't be it was incredible. The experience was incredible in ways that were very touching, and in other ways that were just very humorous. And on this show, I'm going to tell you more about the humorous part of it than I am about the touching part, because nobody wants any of that stuff. So let me start the music here, and we'll be able to finish this show off. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, this is episode 2-19. The next episode will be 2-20. Then after that, we'll start season 3. It'll be season 3, episode 1 of the Todd Cook Show. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, there are only 2 rules for listening to this show. One is, I'll talk. The other is, you listen. Thank you. Bye.